Okay, so now we're on to the third lesson in the central nervous system. We're going to go into the internal structure of the spinal cord. We have gray matter that contains the cell bodies. Remember, gray matter is cell bodies or dendrites or unmyelinated axons. So the gray matter, if you look at this slide right here, is in these the butterfly shape or the H shape of the spinal cord. Okay, and the gray matter are divided into regions called horns. There they receive information from the sensory neurons, and they also send out information. If you look here, you can see that the anterior gray horns are the cell bodies of the somatic motor neurons. Remember, that's the voluntary system. And then the posterior gray horns are the somatic or autonomic sensory neurons. The lateral gray horns are the area of, are not, I'm sorry, the area of the lateral gray horns contain autonomic and motor neurons. They only contain the autonomic and motor neurons of the abdominal cavity. So let's look at them and see what they look like on the PowerPoint. Here are the gray horns themselves. Remember, this is the front, so this is the anterior or the ventral median fissure, and this is the posterior median sulcus. So these are the posterior gray horns right here, and these are the anterior gray horns, and the lateral are right here that are to the middle of the long stalks. Remember, the sensory neurons come in to the gray horns that are on the posterior. Remember, those are also called dorsal. So dorsal or posterior gray horns are here, ventral or anterior are here. So when a message comes in, it comes in through the gray horn here, and then it goes out when it comes out as a motor response through the anterior gray horn. I think I may have said that backwards. Sorry. This is the posterior. This is the anterior. Comes in the posterior, leaves by the anterior. If you look right here, this is the white matter, and these are the tracks. That's what we're going to talk about next. If you look here, they're called the white columns. They are the pathways going up and down. So sensory goes up the ascending tract toward the CNS if it has to be processed by the brain. After processing, it moves down descending tracts of that white matter of the spinal cord away, and it's continuous with the tracts of the brain themselves. We also have the roots. I'm going to go ahead and show you that. Whenever we talk about the roots themselves, there's two bundles of axons connected to each segment of the spinal cord. There's one over here and one over here. Okay. There's a posterior root that goes to the posterior gray horn. There's also a posterior root ganglion. Remember, this can also be called dorsal root or dorsal root ganglion. Then you have the anterior root that contains somatic and autonomic motor neurons. Okay, so the roots have very specific, whether they contain the motor or the sensory. They have remember these nerves that they're made up have the epineurium, perineurium, and endoneurium, just like we did in the muscle. Let's go ahead and look at a PowerPoint of that. Again, well, if I can get the PowerPoint up. Okay, so here are the nerves coming in. So the nerve goes all the way out here, and whenever you think of this nerve, it's a bundle of sensory and motor neurons. They're all together. Most of them are mixed. Okay, then they splinter off in this area right here. And so what happens is when they splinter off, the sensory all go here, and that is the root. This is the ganglion right here. You can see the dorsal ganglion right here. That is where the sensory cell bodies are, and they all go in to the dorsal gray horn or the posterior gray horn. Then, whenever the nerve impulses come out, they all go out through the dorsal root. The cell bodies of the motor neurons are in the gray area, the gray horns themselves. So you do not have a ganglion right here. Remember, ganglion are associated with the sensory nerves that are all coming in to the posterior gray horn. Remember, sensory comes in. Let's look at another thing that's on plus portal real quick. It's this one right here. Sorry. Okay. So if you look right here, this is one of the ones that are on plus portal. Here you've got the pathway coming in. Here we go up from the spinal nerve, we splinter off. Here are the sensory impulses coming in. So it's coming up the posterior dorsal root into the ganglion and then into the posterior dorsal gray horn. And this is a reflex coming right back out. We're going to talk about reflexes in just a second. But this is the pathway it comes in, then it would go up an ascending track and then come back a descending track and go out the same way as a reflex does. You can see this one is the exact same way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to talk about reflexes next. So this is it for this session. And I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.